With Kelly Rossman, and there was a question yesterday in the debate from a Free Press reader. By the way, do you have to be bald to moderate a debate? I'm just curious.
Or male.
Yeah, right. Good point.
Yeah.
Nolan Finley and Stephen Henderson from the Detroit newspapers. Here was the question from the Free Press reader.
Okay, as you both know, and this question goes to Mr. Snyder first. I solicited Free Press readers for questions. The one I chose came from a young man named Daniel O'Connor, who's a graduate student at Michigan State University, and he lives in Royal Oak. He asks, the growing section of our economy is services, and the growing section of our population is retirees. Yet, under the current tax system, both are largely shielded from taxes. As governor, would you support a revenue-neutral structural tax reform bill that shifts the burden towards services and retirees and away from other job providers who would entice more professionals and young families to Michigan? Mr. Snyder?
That's not how you address tax reform. In terms of going after it, the starting point in our state, given the environment we have, is we have to get rid of the job killer, and that's the Michigan business tax. It is fundamentally unfair. It simply needs to be replaced, and I propose replacing it with a flat 6% corporate income tax. That would take the business burden off of most small businesses because they're not even corporations. That's the right attitude. We need to go from job killer to job creation. It would make us among the most competitive in the country. The next tax on the list after that is creating havoc is the personal property tax. And that's the environment that I'm getting recognition from across the state when I go to town halls. People want to see the MBT go away. As I've said on the campaign trail, when they brought it in, they replaced the single business tax. It's just like Lansing went to the video store and rented Dumb and Dumber.
Mr. Bonero.
It's funny that my opponent talks about Dumb and Dumber. He's got one of them working for him. One of the guys who authored the Michigan business tax that he wants to eliminate is actually Brian Calley, his lieutenant governor. So I guess if you don't want Dumb and Dumber, you better not vote for the Republican ticket. Look, we need real reform. There's no question about that, and we're going to get that. We need to make Michigan the #1 place in the country to do business, and we can do that. Of course, the MBT surcharge is going to go. Brian Calley helped create it, and I'm going to eliminate it. We're going to come up with a fair, equitable, and predictable tax system, and we're going to work with the business community to do that. But I'll never increase taxes on small business, which is what his 6% would be. For a lot of people, a lot of businesses who are paying 1.8%, 6% would nearly treble their tax bill. I'll never do that to small business. And yes, we need to reform the tax system, but not with a regressive system. I'm afraid the proposal that came in from the reader would be regressive, and so I couldn't go that way, and I can't increase taxes at a time like this. It's the last thing we need to do is to increase taxes on small business or folks that can least afford it.
You wanted
Running mate Brian Calley.
you wanted a rebuttal, Mr. Snyder?
Well, sure, I think it's appropriate. I mean, it's one thing to how you address things. It's another to be negative on people. And to make a comment about my lieutenant governor candidate, I mean, that's just not the right way. Brian Calley actually fought hard to put in that provision you talked about, the small business credit, to really bring down the burden on small businesses. He was a leader in doing that. And to put it in perspective, your comment about increasing tax liability is inaccurate. Because again, it's getting to the facts. It takes that burden out of proprietorships, S corporations, and sole proprietorships. They wouldn't pay any tax under the system because they're paying a double tax today. So we don't need to get bogged down in taxes other than to say the MBT is really bad. And simply reducing the surcharge is not the answer. If you have a dumb tax and you reduce it by 20%, you still have a dumb tax. It fundamentally needs to be eliminated.
Rick Snyder was the one who brought up Dumb and Dumber in the first place.
Well, yeah, he was. And I got to tell you, Michael Patrick, I listen to this stuff, and I'm a small business owner myself. I don't know who's right and who's wrong. I want somebody to stop at the end of every question and really analyze. Here's what's accurate. Here's what's not. Because, frankly, they both sound kind of good.
Yeah.
You know, you think, yeah, okay, good point. You know, the Michigan business tax was put into place to replace the single business tax. I mean, there's a lot of history. And one of the things that I think is that voters probably never really recognize is that wholesale change rarely happens in the legislative process. It tends to be incremental. You change something because it wasn't good, and your change maybe has some unintended consequences. But, you know, you listen to both of them, and they threw so many numbers out. I'm going to call my accountant this morning and say,
Am I in
Mr.
trouble?
Mormos, what was all that? 6%, 1.8%, what the heck? I don't get it.
Well, you should probably take a spoonful of, take this all with a grain of salt then. Because
I need a spoonful
Yeah.
of salt.
what they say they're going to do isn't necessarily what they're going to be able to do. We have to learn that lesson over and over, and we learn it with Barack Obama right now.
And how important a lesson is that? And that is that the executive proposes and the legislative branch disposes. And the governor is only as good as his or her programs end up getting supported. And so it'll be really interesting, regardless of which one of these individuals becomes governor, he is still dependent on 148 legislators, a majority of them agreeing with him.
Which candidate do you think can move faster if they get elected?
Ooh, good question. Both or neither. It depends on how fast a new legislature moves. We've got a brand new group of folks, and it's a large group of folks who don't have a lot of experience.
Who will lead them? We will find out in 21 days. It's Michael Patrick Shields.